The sun sat high above the vast Arizona plains, turning the desert horizon into a wavering river of heat. Dust swept across the broken posts of the abandoned outpost, a place long forgotten by soldiers and travelers alike. But today it held something alive, something breathing, something suffering. Elias Crow pulled his horse to a stop. The moment he saw movement near the collapsed horsepen, he wasn't a man who scared. Easily, 10 years of drifting from one ranching job to another had hardened his skin, his resolve and his heart. But the sight before him made even his steady breath falter. A woman, thin, exhausted, barely upright, was tied to a rotted beam. Her wrists were bound by rough military rope, her ankles scraped raw from struggling. Her clothes were traditional Apache leather, decorated with turquoise stones that still glimmered even through all the dirt. Elias dismounted. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The woman's head lifted slowly, her braids slipping forward like falling ropes. Her face was hollow from hunger. Her lips cracked, but her eyes, dark, fierce, still held enough fire to lock onto him with suspicion. She whispered a word in Apache he didn't understand, but the pain behind it didn't need translation. Elias drew his knife and sliced the rope from her wrists. She collapsed forward, and he caught her before she hit the ground. She weighed nothing. Her ribs were sharp beneath her skin, as if starvation itself had carved her down to bone. "Oh, what kind of devil's left you like this?" he muttered. He carried her to the shade of the shed, laying her against the cool wooden boards. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Elias grabbed his canteen, lifted her chin gently, and let the water drip slowly into her mouth. At first she resisted. Then her body remembered life, and she drank greedily. "Easy, easy now." When she had enough, he pulled back. She stared up at him, still unsure whether he meant harm or help. Elias raised both hands in a peaceful gesture. "Name's Elias. I'm not here to hurt you, darling. Just happened to ride by." She watched him carefully before breathing out 2 words, accented but clear enough. "Captured soldiers." He scanned the area. Wagon tracks, boot prints, empty crates with U.S. cavalry branding. It made sense. A patrol must have taken her as a prisoner, then abandoned her when a sandstorm or conflict forced them to move too fast. They left her to die. Elias clenched his jaw. Whatever war the army thought they were fighting, leaving a woman to starve wasn't something a decent man tolerated. He checked her arms again. They were bruised, cut, burned. Someone had tied her too tight for too long. "I'm gonna get you out of here," Elias said, kneeling beside her. "Food, shelter, whatever you need." The woman looked at him, confused but listening. "Why, help Apache," she whispered. Elias sighed. "Because you're a human being, and no one deserves what they did to you." Her eyes softened for the first time. He helped her stand, supporting her as her legs trembled beneath her. The wind kicked up around them, as if urging them to leave this place behind. When she stumbled, he caught her again, this time with both hands. "You're under my protection now," he said quietly. "Ain't nobody gonna lay a hand on you again." For the first time she believed him. He could see it in the way her shoulders finally relaxed. With slow, careful steps, he led her toward his horse. But as they approached, a distant rumble broke across the plains, the kind of thunder that didn't come from the sky. Hooves, a lot of them. Elias turned sharply, hand drifting to the revolver at his waist. A dust cloud rose on the horizon. Cavalry riders returning to retrieve the prisoner they abandoned. The woman tensed, clutching Elias's arm. He stepped in front of her. "Stay behind me." The riders closed fast. Elias's pulse steadied, the way it always did before a fight. He whispered without looking back, "Reckon trouble's comin'. But I promised you protection, and a crow never breaks his word." The cavalry drew nearer. Elias tightened his stance, and the desert wind carried the rising storm straight toward them. The dust cloud tore across the plains like a curtain pulled from the sky. Elias planted his boots firmly in the sand, shielding the weakened woman behind him as the first soldiers came into view, blue coats, rifles, and hardened expressions. He counted 8 riders, too many for a fair fight, but he'd never been the kind of man to back down just because the odds were stacked against him. One rider raised his rifle, Step away from the prisoner, Cowboy. Elias didn't move. This woman's half dead. You left her to die. That's government business, the soldier snapped. No, Elias said, voice low and lethal. That's murder. The lead soldier smirked. We don't answer to drifters. Elias glanced back at the woman. She stood with one hand braced against the shed, her breath shallow but eyes fierce with fear and anger. He knew then, protecting her wasn't just something he'd chosen. It was something fate demanded. Elias drew his weapon. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady, certain. The soldiers froze. You aim that at us, Cowboy, the leader warned. You best be ready to die for her. Elias's jaw tightened. Reckon I am. Silence swallowed the desert. Wind hissed between the boards of the shed. Even the horses sensed the tension. Then, the sharp whistle of an arrow. It sliced past Elias's shoulder and embedded itself into the ground right before the cavalry line. Every soldier jerked in shock. Elias didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He knew a war cry when he heard one. Apache riders crested the ridge behind the shed. 8 of them, armed with bows, lances, and the burning fury of a tribe wronged. The woman behind him straightened as she recognized them. Her people. Hope flickered in her eyes for the first time since he found her. The cavalry looked trapped between 2 storms, the cowboy in front, the Apache behind. The leader growled, "Damn it! Pull back!" The soldiers turned their horses and retreated fast, kicking up dust as they fled from certain death. Only when they were nothing but distant dots did Elias lower his gun. The Apache riders approached slowly, cautiously. One older warrior dismounted and hurried to the woman, lifting her face gently with shaking hands. He spoke her name in a trembling voice. She replied weakly, tears streaking down her dusty cheeks. Elias stepped back, letting them have their moment. After a long embrace, the older warrior approached Elias. He studied the cowboy's face, his stance, his weapon still holstered but ready. "You saved her," the warrior said in broken English. Elias nodded. "Found her left for dead. No one deserves that." The warrior placed a firm hand on Elias's shoulder. "You have honor, rare in these lands." The tribe helped the woman onto a horse, supporting her as gently as family could. Before they took her away, she turned back to Elias. Her voice, though weak, carried clearly across the wind. "You protect me. I remember." Elias tipped his hat. "You just get strong again." As the Apache rode off, the woman looked at him one last time, an unspoken promise passing between them. Elias watched them disappear over the ridge. The desert suddenly felt quieter, heavier, as if holding its breath after the storm. He holstered his gun and saddled up. Time to ride on. But something tugged at his chest. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him. Maybe it was the fire in her eyes despite all she'd been through. Maybe it was the promise he'd made. "You're under my protection now." A promise he didn't intend to break just because she rode away. He turned his horse toward the horizon. "Reckon this story ain't done yet," he murmured. "Not by a long shot." And with the fading sun at his back, Elias Crow rode off toward the next chapter of a destiny he never expected, but couldn't walk away from.